The night before Halloween is known as Mischief Night. And for good reason. It's a night known for pranks, tricks, and not so many treats. But tonight's story is about a mischief night that goes horribly wrong. It turns into something not at all childlike. Something deadly.
What you are about to hear is believed to be real, based on witness accounts, testimonies, and public record. This is terrifying and true.
In the quiet, affluent neighborhood of Belle Haven in Greenwich, Connecticut, the night of October 30th, 1975 was supposed to be just another mischief night, filled with harmless pranks and youthful laughter. But as the leaves rustled under the pale moonlight, something sinister unfolded that would forever change the lives of those involved. This is the chilling story of the cold-blooded murder of 15-year-old Martha Moxley, a truly haunting case that continues to intrigue and disturb many across the globe, sparking debates and raising questions about the American justice system and the complexities of solving a decades-old murder mystery. We're telling that story tonight, after these quick words from our sponsors. Let's start by asking a simple question. Who was Martha Moxley? Martha Elizabeth Moxley was born on August 16, 1960. She was a lively 15-year-old American high school student from Greenwich, Connecticut, who was murdered in 1975. Moxley was last seen alive spending time at the home of the Skakel family, across the street from her home in Belle Haven. As per the assessment of many experts, she had a low-risk profile as a victim. What this means is that she did not fit the typical high-risk criteria, such as being involved in excessive drug use, partying, or coming from a neglectful household, which would elevate her risk of getting involved in any type of crime statistically. A quick look at her case and most people would be convinced that she was quite the opposite. While she may have experimented with marijuana, which was relatively common in 1975, she was not engaged in risky behavior and had recently moved to Greenwich, specifically to the affluent neighborhood of Belle Haven, which can be classified as an area dominated mainly by people belonging to the upper middle class and higher. Consequently, most of the people living there were well-to-do professionals who commuted into the city for their high-powered jobs at top accounting firms, law firms, and stock trading companies. It was a typical neighborhood where kids would interact, ride bikes, and engage in various activities together, fostering a close-knit community. Martha was well-liked, outgoing, and friendly, and she had lived in the area for about a year. She had become friends with the Skakel family, who were distant relatives of the Kennedys through marriage. The Skakels were a well-off clan led by Rushton Skakel, who owned a company specializing in carbon coal, a cleaner version of coal used in various industries. Martha spent a lot of time with the Skakel children, particularly Michael, who was her age, and Tommy, who was a year older. Over time, a romantic and flirtatious relationship developed between Martha and Michael, which later shifted toward Tommy. This change likely fueled some rivalry between Michael and Tommy, as documented in various sources, and set the stage for the primary suspects, Michael, Tommy, and Ken Littleton, who played a unique role as a tutor and potential intruder into Martha's life, as we will discuss in more depth a little later on. Before diving into the crime scene details, let's establish a timeline so that it's easier to understand what exactly happened, how, and when. After all, when we talk about true crime, it's all about connecting the dots to make sense of the events. The murder occurred on the night before Halloween, often referred to as Mischief Night. On the evening of October 30th, 1975, Martha Moxley joined her friends in the neighborhood for the Mischief Night tradition, where local youths engage in pranks like ringing doorbells and running away and playing other tricks like toilet papering houses and trees. As the night unfolded, Martha's attention seemed to gravitate towards Thomas Skakel, the older brother of Michael Skakel. Flirting turned into a memorable kiss, and the night took a curious turn. They were last seen behind the fence near the Skakel family pool around 9:30 p.m., and that's where things start to get mysterious. The following day, Martha's lifeless body was discovered beneath a tree in her family's backyard. While her clothes had been removed, a body examination revealed she had not been subjected to sexual assault. Pieces of a broken 6-iron golf club were found near her remains, and the autopsy showed that she had suffered both blunt force trauma and stab wounds inflicted with the club, a golf club that traced back to the Skakel family. Naturally, suspicion fell on them, especially on Thomas and Michael. The police got involved and investigations were carried out so that the real killer could be identified and punished accordingly. However, after some time, the investigation stopped and the murder, sadly, lost police attention. No one was talking. The case had gone cold. Then, in 1991, the spotlight on the Moxley murder case was reignited as William Kennedy Smith was tried and later on acquitted for rape. It was rumored that he had been present at the Skakel residence the night of the murder, and therefore people began asking questions again. Could Kennedy be another possible suspect? As the investigation reopened, Thomas and Michael Skakel were interviewed again, and their stories started to change considerably during this time. Thomas admitted that he and Martha had been intimate that night, while Michael confessed to a disturbing act of voyeurism from a tree. Yet there was no concrete evidence pointing to the killer. Another element that added to the case was Michael's conduct. Michael had begun experimenting with alcohol and drugs at a young age. By the time he was 15, he was already drinking heavily, and it was known that he had used cocaine. On the night of the murder as well, he had consumed alcohol without any adult intervention. Going back to the police interviews, Tommy initially told investigators that he said goodbye to Martha and returned to the house to work on a school paper about Abraham Lincoln after the three had spent the evening together. However, this alibi did not hold up when investigators found no such assignment. This inconsistency immediately raised further suspicions. In 2000, Michael Skakel was arrested and eventually convicted in 2002. He received a 20-year to life sentence for Martha's murder. However, the legal saga didn't end there. Michael's conviction was overturned in 2013, and he was released on bail. Then, in 2016, his request for a new trial was denied, and he was briefly imprisoned again. But in 2018, the Connecticut Supreme Court granted him his new trial. Finally, in 2020, the prosecutor decided not to retry the case. Years later, Michael and Tommy's father, Rushton Skakel, hired a private investigative firm to clear his son's name. But this effort backfired. The firm's report, known as the Sutton Report, ended up casting even more suspicion on both Michael and Tommy. I'm sure at this point many of you might be getting a little confused because this case does keep on getting twisted with so many suspects to keep track of. But as per the majority of theories that have been revealed to the public, there are 4 main suspects in the case. So, let's discuss them in detail and also talk about the reasons behind them being treated as suspects in the first place. Our first theory is Michael Skakel. Several factors have led to suspicions surrounding Michael's involvement. During initial police interviews, he claimed to have left his house around 9:15 p.m. to visit his cousin's house and returned home by 11 p.m. However, in a private detective interview, Leaked in 1995, Michael mentioned climbing a tree outside of Martha's window at midnight and engaging in inappropriate behavior. At a pretrial hearing in 2000, a childhood friend testified that Michael admitted to the act and made self-incriminating statements. While no concrete physical evidence tied Michael to the murder, the jury was swayed by his incriminating statements and erratic behavior following Martha's death. Despite his conviction, Michael was eventually released from prison based on inadequate legal representation, and his conviction was later vacated. Martha's mother, Dorothy Moxley, maintained that Michael was the culprit, while Michael himself continued to stress his innocence. One of them was mistaken. We just don't know who. The second theory is Tommy Skakel. In the years following Martha's murder, Tommy Skakel was considered a suspect. He initially passed a lie detector test, but later admitted to lying during his initial 1975 interview. This isn't surprising, by the way. Lie detectors are not admissible in court. They can be easily manipulated, from things as simple as poking yourself with a needle or contracting the muscles in your back and sphincter. Tommy confessed that he and Martha had engaged in sexual behavior outside his home, making him the last person known to have seen Martha alive. However, he has consistently denied any involvement in her murder. In a 2016 Supreme Court hearing, Michael's lawyer argued for a new trial, suggesting that Tommy was the likely suspect. He claimed that police, while lacking sufficient evidence to charge Tommy, believed he was the probable killer. Tommy still asserted his innocence and has never faced charges in connection with Martha's murder. The third theory is Kenneth Littleton. Apart from the Skakel brothers, their live-in tutor, Kenneth Littleton, raised suspicions. Littleton was identified as a suspect early in the investigation and subjected to a lie detector test. Police noted that he provided untruthful answers to key questions. Additionally, he had prior arrests and exhibited strange behavior in the months following the murder. After the private school where Littleton taught learned of his past criminal record, he was fired and left Greenwich. Littleton's mother mentioned the toll this took on their family, leading to alcoholism and severe strain. Littleton has never been charged in connection with Martha's murder or any other homicides, and denies any involvement. The fourth theory is Burton Tinsley and Adolf Hasbrouck. In 2016, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. published a book attempting to clear Michael's name and claimed that two Bronx teenagers, Burton Tinsley and Adolf Hasbrouck, were the actual perpetrators of Martha's murder. Kennedy based his allegations on information provided by Gaetano Tony Bryant, who initially proposed this theory in 2003. Kennedy even penned an article for The Atlantic titled "A Miscarriage of Justice," where he asserted Skakel's innocence. In the piece, he made a case that the state's argument against Kenneth Littleton, the aforementioned live-in tutor, had been a previous suspect and one with substantially more likelihood of committing the crime. Bryant, who had attended school with Michael and later met Tinsley and Hasbrouck in the Bronx, alleged that the two had accompanied him to Greenwich on the night of Martha's murder and later admitted to killing her. However, Bryant's claims remain unverified, and he refused to provide official statements. When Michael's defense sought a new trial in 2007, the judge dismissed Bryant's claims as lacking credibility and corroboration. Tinsley and Hasbrouck have also denied having any involvement whatsoever in Martha's death. Kennedy's book still stands by Bryant's allegations, but no official charges have been filed against the Bronx teenagers in connection with the case. These theories add layers of complexity to the Martha Moxley murder case, leaving dozens of unanswered questions about what truly happened on that fateful night, the night before Halloween, 1975. Martha Moxley's tragic murder remains an unsolved puzzle, haunting the memories of those who followed the case closely. Her story is one of missed opportunities, shifting narratives, and the imperfection of our justice system exposed for the world to see. But one thing that remains certain is that Martha's life was wrongfully cut short on that fateful mischief night. a night meant for harmless pranks, but forever marred by a heinous crime. Martha's story reminds us that justice can be hard to find even when there's strong evidence. It challenges us to seek accountability even when it's difficult, and it reminds us that behind every unsolved case, there are loved ones still waiting for explanations, haunted by the memory of a young life tragically cut short. The golf club used as a murder weapon still stands as a macabre reminder of the questions that remain unanswered. I gotta admit, my decision to feature Halloween-related stories on Terrifying and True, I'm not gonna say I regret it, but it has kicked me in the lungs a little bit as far as the fun time of year. Yeah, it's a little hard to read these stories, but of course, every time of year has heinous crimes committed during it. Christmas is no exception, so I guess I can't be that surprised, but this story definitely hits hard. It's a painfully simple case of murder. The murder of an innocent young woman. And the fact that the main suspects were relatively rich and powerful young men, it muddies the waters in a way that I certainly don't enjoy. So that all being said, what do you guys think? Do you think there was a miscarriage of justice due to the money and power involved? Or do you think that maybe it was the other way around? Maybe the state of Connecticut decided to throw these kids under the bus to make an example, to show that rich and powerful people can't just do whatever they want to others. I really don't know. But all I do know is Martha Moxley did not deserve what happened to her. And I do hope that one day justice is served. One day, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we can know what happened that fateful night and know that justice is fully served. But for now, all I have to say is, try to enjoy your Halloween safely, and I'll try too. Terrifying and True is narrated by Enrique Couto, executive produced by Rob Fields and Joshua Butler, produced by Daniel Wilder with original theme music by Ray Mattis. If you have a story you'd like us to cover on the program, send us an email at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. And if you want to support us in a very direct way, go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support us and allow us to keep the spooky rolling and rolling and rolling. And I want to say a big thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names at the end of the show. And they are Johnny Nix, Bobbletopia.com, Megan Hua, Julia Kirsch, Brent McCullough, Steve King, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time right here on Weekly Spooky and Terrifying and True.